In today's full swing video analysis, I'm going to take a deep dive look into the golf swing of Anthony Kim. Now, if you're a golfer out there watching this who likes to play a fade, there's easier and harder ways of going about building a golf swing that will help you hit that shot shape on a consistent basis. Now, as a golf coach, when working with players, whether it's in person or online, I've got a huge library full on my phone of tour player swings, and I'll bring certain players in as a reference model to give a player that I'm working with a visual cue of where we want to move things in their technique over time to support certain upgrades to their ball flight. Now, there's certain players that have very complicated swings. There's a lot going on there, and they've got moves in there that are hard to emulate for the average amateur golfer. Anthony Kim is actually a player who plays a fade and does so with an action that is, relatively speaking, quite simple. And I'm going to talk you through some of what those pieces are here. Now, before getting into his golf swing too much, I want to quickly timestamp this video to congratulate Anthony Kim on his victory this past weekend in Adelaide in Australia, which is an absolutely phenomenal comeback story. I don't want to go too deeply into it because I'm simply not going to be able to do it justice, and I don't think anybody else will either. I think you've got to watch his interviews and his podcast that he's been on as he tells his story just to really get the grasp of the magnitude of what he's achieved coming back from where he was. And I think it's a story that will inspire a lot of people all over the world, whether they're a golfer or not. So the one thing I would say is, if you haven't watched the highlights from the golf this past weekend, when he fended off the likes of Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, Tyrrell Hatton, and achieved something that a lot of people thought was impossible coming from where he had been with his game, I think even just looking at the crowd and how they surged around the final green when it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to go out and get the victory, and it was very old school as a real throwback look to how close the gallery got to him, and it was really something special to watch. So I would urge you to check it out if you haven't already done so. But as we get into his golf swing here, I want to talk you through a couple of things that we see here straight away. Here he is practicing on the range. We can see some alignment sticks on the ground. Anthony Kim is someone who knows full well that alignment isn't the be-all and end-all when it comes to what influences what happens in your swing. But he is very aware of, if his alignment gets too out of whack, all of a sudden it will start to greatly wreak havoc on his ability to control his golf ball. When he first came back to golf after about 12 years out of the competitive game, his feet to help him play that fade is always aimed a little bit left of his target, but he felt his shoulders had actually started to aim way too far to the right, and that was causing some complications within his swing. So he's very disciplined and diligent with making sure he stays on top of his alignments. What you also see here in the setup is what I would imagine is a hangover effect from his junior golf days, as you see him choke down on the club here. A lot of kids tend to be given clubs that are hand-me-downs from older siblings or parents, and the clubs are just simply too long and too heavy. And for the kid to get some element of control over that club that's ill-suited to them, a lot of the time you'll see them grip down. Now, that also impacts what we see when he gets to the top of the backswing. And you can see as he gets to the top, although he has a full turn of the body, you can see he would, if you're looking at this from a face-on view, he still gets a full turn of the body. His shoulder still goes to 90 degrees, at least, of a turn, and certainly has sufficient levels of hip turn as well here. But because he grips down, that does reduce how far his arms travel in the backswing, and it gives him a very compact, controlled position at the top where we don't see his arms have a lot of excess lifting or excess runoff in the swing. So there's certainly no John Daly look to what we see here at this point. Right arm is still very under control. It hasn't got too disconnected from the side of his body. His lead arm almost perfectly matches the angle of his shoulders and the inclination that they're on down to the ground. And his shaft is in a very nice and tidy neutral spot at the top. So a lot to like here by this point. But as I say, this more compact look from the length of a swing is influenced from gripping down on the club here. If a golfer is watching this and they struggle with their strike, gripping down and having a compact, restricted journey to the top of the backswing in terms of how far the arms go, but still having a full turn of the body, that is something that I would recommend trying, as it can give you a little bit of an easier time controlling where that club crashes into the ground and making sure that your low point is ahead of the golf ball. So as we get Anthony Kim back into his swing here, if I pause him just at his conclusion of his takeaway, we can see that the conclusion of his takeaway sees the shaft get level to the ground and his hands are smack right in line with the club, or club is right in line with the hands, depending on which way you want to phrase that. His right arm is very, very straight by this point, and this is something that helps him hit that checkpoint of the club being in front of the hands. Now, a lot of amateurs who struggle with good structure to their takeaway, they see a lot of early bend and retraction of that trail arm and a lot of bends, which tends to whip that club too much on the inside. So again, a nice checkpoints here for Anthony as we continue to play him up from here. His lead arm works across the body, and if we extend it down a line from the butt end of the grip here, we can see it would fall if I pencil that in to perfectly match the shaft here. It lands just inside his golf ball. So again, a lot of amateur golfers struggle with this point as well in their golf swing. I would call this position 3. If you're familiar with the P system, the 10 Ps, 10 positions in the golf swing, this is position 3, lead arm level to the ground. And a lot of people by this point who struggle with their strike would have a very flat shaft angle, and instead of that shaft being inside the ball, it would be a long ways above it actually, because they've experienced a lot of early forearm roll in their takeaway. As we continue to build Anthony up in the swing here, as he comes through the shot here, compared to some other players, I would say compared to drawers of the golf ball, his lead arm is a little bit more out off the body at this point than some players, which facilitates his path working across the ball here, which then is reflected in just how low of an exit he has here. We can see that is definitely something we see in faders of the golf ball. A low exit, we can see it in drawers of the golf ball as well, but this is properly low right here. For adding context, we see a lot of amateurs have the shaft exit through the neck on the guillotine swing plane, we could call it, or through the collarbone, or even on the shoulder area, but he's significantly around the body, so indicating a club path that is working across the ball here to support the fade that he's trying to hit. What we also see at this point here is a great look to his trail foot. So we can see he hasn't spun out with that trail heel at this point. We see him maintain his side bend through the shot. Shoulders are still on an incline down to the ground here at this point. We see no gap between the knees forming here, as his left hip has climbed higher than his right. A lot of players, if they just took anything from this video, if they were to practice slow motion swings and trying to replicate this position here with the use of just making sure that they're doing it correctly by the use of video analysis, set up their phone on a tripod, watch themselves do this, or doing it in front of a mirror, this is a great image to try and replicate here. And as we bring Anthony on to the conclusion of his follow through, perfectly in balance, and certainly all in all an awful lot to like in his golf swing. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe buttons. It really helps with the growth of the channel, but it also just ensures that you won't miss out on any future content coming from myself here on the channel, of which there's plenty lined up to be released very shortly. For any golfer who has stayed until the end of a lengthy video like this, which is quite detailed, orientated, and very heavy on the educational side of things when it comes to the golf swing, you strike me as someone who is serious about learning and serious about finding ways to improve their own golf. If that is the case, then you can reach out and connect with myself today, regardless of where you are in the world. My name is Seán Marks, I'm a PGA professional, and I specialize in teaching the full swing, and I help golfers worldwide through an app called Skillest that I use for my online coaching, help players reach their full potential tee to green. The online program that I run on Skillest that helps people of all ages and all skill levels reach their full potential tee to green is called the Long Game Transformation Program. The minimum commitment for this program for students looking to sign up is that of a 3-month period. Often is the case where students want to continue on long beyond this point because they've seen the value in it, their game has seen the improvements, and they want to continue to push the boundaries and see what's possible. But let's say that you only wanted to sign up for the first 3 months. Here is exactly what I can promise you will learn. You will learn the 3 fundamentals required to completely transform your long game, and that is strike, direction, and distance. The first, in strike, you need the ability to control your low points. Second of all, when we touch on direction, you need to be able to have a predictable curve and a consistent shot shape that you can rely on out on the course. And third is distance. You need to be able to know how to pump enough distance into your game to be competitive at the level of this sport that you desire to play at.
This program is designed to give you as much support as you need. There's nothing pre-recorded. Everything is personalized to the individual. There's open communication channels that you can message me whenever you want. Anytime you have a question, you can message me. There's unlimited feedback on the program. And if you're ever in doubt as to whether you're doing a drill correctly or whatever the case may be, you can message me and get feedback within a turnaround time of never any more than 24 hours. If you're ready to start improving today, I will leave a link underneath the video in the description box where you can download Skillist. Alternatively, you can search for it on the App Store and get started on your improvement journey today. If you want in-person coaching with myself in Ireland, I also work with players based in Ireland online, but if you'd like in-person coaching, you can see my booking diary on my website, seanmarksgolf.com. So I look forward to seeing you, whether it's in person or remotely online, very soon.